Welcome to this week's edition of Flashback Friday, your opportunity to get some good review by listening to episodes from the past that Jason has handpicked to help you today in the present and propel you into the future. Enjoy.
This show is produced by the Hartman Media Company. For more information and links to all our great podcasts, visit hartmanmedia.com.
Speakers, publishers, consultants, coaches, and info marketers unite. The Speaking of Wealth Show is your roadmap to success and significance. Learn the latest tools, technologies, and tactics to get more bookings, sell more products, and attract more clients. If you're looking to increase your direct response sales, create a big-time personal brand, and become the go-to guru, the Speaking of Wealth Show is for you. Here's your host, Jason Hartman.
It's my pleasure to welcome Jamie Tardy to the show, and this woman is awesome. She is a business coach, a speaker, and she has interviewed over 150 millionaire entrepreneurs. She's been featured on many major media outlets, including CNN, MSN, Success Magazine, and Yahoo, I believe 6 times on Yahoo. She recently authored her book, The Eventual Millionaire, and she also has a podcast by the same name. It's my pleasure to have Jamie here with us today. We're going to talk a little bit about some broad topics, but also a special focus on getting mentors for free, mastermind groups, how you can start a mastermind group, and a bunch of other stuff. Jamie, welcome. How are you?
I am very well. Thanks so much for having me, Jason.
It's good to have you. And giving our listeners a sense of geography, you're coming to us from beautiful Austin, Texas, I believe. Is that correct?
Today it is freezing, but yes, it's Austin, Texas. It's 42 degrees out right now. Ridiculous.
Well, for someone from the Northeast, as you are, I'm surprised you think that's cold.
No kidding. I shouldn't, but now I'm acclimated to the Texas weather.
Yeah, well, if you move to Arizona, as I did 3 years ago, you will really be cold sensitive because, gosh, when it's in the 60s, I think it's cold nowadays. So,
you're ruined forever, Jason.
I am ruined. I have to live in warm places for the rest of my life now. But hey, give us a little bit of your background, Jamie, just for a quick moment before we dive in. And you've got so much content to share and so much experience in coaching so many people and interviewing so many millionaires. And give us a little background first. I think we got to have that.
I did the whole get a day job that you think will make you happy kind of thing. So I did corporate when I was younger. I went to college for computers, got a great job right out of it, making just at 6 figures when I was 22, which was really impressive. I thought I was really cool.
I think it is really cool. That is good.
Yes, right? I mean, I applied to 140 jobs before I ended up getting that one, and I worked my butt off during college in order to do it. But the reason why is because I was doing it for the money, right? I wanted to be a millionaire since I was a little girl, which I know is kind of weird too. But I went after the corporate route and figured that's how you had to do it. And then I had the realization when I was about 24 that, life should not be about going to work at a job you hate, no matter how much money you're getting. And so unfortunately, I was making great money, but I was also in $70,000 in debt. So my story goes, I paid off 70 grand in debt in 16 months. And then I quit my day job. I started a business, and now I absolutely, utterly love what I do and make way more than I did before. So it works out really well.
So how long ago did you start your business?
7 years ago.
7 years. Okay, great. And how long ago did you start the Eventual Millionaire podcast?
The podcast was about 4 years ago.
Okay, fantastic. So in those 150 millionaire interviews, give us some of the key principles that you've learned, and then let's kind of dive into this mentor and mastermind topic, which I'm sure will be part of that.
Definitely. So a couple things that were really interesting when I first started interviewing millionaires. Number one, I didn't know anyone. I'm from Maine originally and from a town of like 2,000 people. And until I moved to Austin earlier this year, I was living there. I mean, I'd lived in other places before too, but 2,000 people that don't really know much about online anything. I didn't know any millionaires at all. So being able to sort of start doing the interviews. After the first 10, I was like, wow, they kind of are saying similar things. And then I did 20 and 30 and 40, and I was like, wow, there are themes that just keep coming up over and over and over again. And when I wrote the book, I ended up doing a survey of them and asking them questions to really try and get the numbers behind what people feel. And after combing through thousands of pages of transcripts, you can find some really hidden gems and some cool stuff on what they're actually doing. The reason why I wanted to interview millionaires to begin with was because I felt like there were lots of books like how to become a millionaire, but I didn't want to learn from the guy that was like, how to become a millionaire. I wanted to learn from the person that was actually in the trenches doing it and not talking about it, right? I wanted to know if they were real people or if they, I put them on a pedestal kind of a thing when I was younger.
Right.
So trying to actually get a hold of them and find out what was working for them right now and what wasn't was huge for me. And so when I started doing the interviews, the themes that kept coming up over and over again, and I wrote a little ebook that's free on my website about them. I think there's 3 habits that really come through. So the first is that they have a no excuses approach. And what I mean by that, don't get me wrong, everyone has excuses. I mean, I do. I mean, most of the millionaires do.
We all do.
I know, right? You can't get past that. I don't have enough time. I don't have enough money. I don't have, everything. There's excuses in life. The thing that I noticed with them, though, is that they're really much more able to get past their excuses. It's about, okay, I see that. I recognize it as an excuse and I'm going to move forward anyway. And having that be a core principle of theirs, right? That anything is possible. They can just push through, even if it's not going to be fun, right? Mm-hmm. Even if they have boundaries. That's what matters more than anything, which actually goes into the next habit, which is this idea of continuous forward motion. So we have these no excuses, or we get past our excuses. And the whole point is to just keep moving forward. Yes, you might move back sometimes, but as long as you're continually working towards progress, that's what really makes a huge difference. One of the millionaires I interviewed, his name is Frank McKinney. Mm-hmm. He calls it the lunch pail approach, right? And this guy is like, he calls himself the real estate daredevil.
He's awesome. I've had Frank on twice on my show.
Exactly.
And he's great. Yeah. He's a real character too. Very well branded, very nice guy. But he talks about the lunch pail approach.
Yep.
Okay.
So what he says is it's one of those things where it continually adds up, right? You bring your lunch to work every single day. And that when you look back over however many years, you could either, if you care about saving money, that saves you a ton of money. But otherwise, it's those little things that you're doing every single day that make all the difference, right? So what are those things that you're working on today that are going to be moving you towards the wealth that you want? Most of the time, we're not doing it. Most of the time, we let life run us instead of us running our lives, right? And so really making sure we're paying attention to what we want to make progress on and that continuous forward motion on something very specific, that focus, that's what's going to start moving you forward faster. And you'll be able to see the results. Like when I paid off all my debt, it was one of those things where I'm like, that's the only thing I focused on for a long time. And it was about making the progress. And thankfully, it was all in numbers. So I could see it going down. And with wealth, too, you can see it going up. If you track that stuff, you can see it going up. And making that continuous forward motion is huge. Yes, there's going to be setbacks. But as long as you know you're keeping your eye on the prize the entire time, that makes a difference.
There's an incredibly powerful concept that relates exactly to what you're saying. And some people talk about it in business. They call it the big mo, and it's just momentum. So that continuous forward motion that you talk about, similar thing. And we've got to just keep moving toward the goal regardless of what happens. Great quote on the excuses part. Your first point is, you can either have results or excuses. You just can't have both. And I think that's very true in life. We can be run by the excuses or we can be run by the results. Can't have both. Yeah.
Well, and that's the funny thing. Most people don't even recognize them. One tip that I give people, and I actually did this at the beginning because mine was, I don't have enough time, right? And so being able to have someone call you out when they recognize excuses. I'm a coach, so thankfully I lovingly do it to my clients, mostly lovingly. Sometimes I'm a pain about it. But having someone call you out, because sometimes we don't even realize we're doing it and we're holding ourselves back and you don't even realize it. And that sucks. But that's one of those pieces that we just need to work on and progress and make a big difference.
Yeah, great point. Okay, good. Let's continue.
Okay, so the last one, and this sounds really cliche, right? But it's extremely important. So please don't write it off as I've heard this before, right? It's that they're continually willing to invest in themselves and make improvements, right? So that personal growth aspect, that always trying to get better and better at what they do or be the best at what they do, being able to put time and money. I mean, I just saw Jason in Mexico, right? So we went to Mexico and hung out with some super amazing high level people that are doing amazing things. I love investing. I love paying money to go and hang out with really amazing people because I know that levels up my consciousness. I mean, even just hanging out with you, Jason, hanging out with some amazing people and they tell me the deals they're working on, that levels me up internally. or paying for a course or whatever it is.
It totally expands your thinking. Jim Rohn famously said, your income will be the average of the 5 people you spend most of your time with. And that's why it's worth paying to go to things that sometimes just the price of the event is the screen. That's the screening mechanism. And so I couldn't agree with you more. Very inspirational.
That quote specifically has had a great impact on my life. 7 years ago, when I quit my day job, I was, listening to a lot of personal development stuff. I listened to that quote and I actually did this. I wrote out my top 5 friends that I hung out with the most. And I looked at their lives, and most of them were not happy in jobs that they had, and they weren't really where they wanted to be. They weren't even striving to where they wanted to be. Half of them didn't know what they wanted. And I was like, okay, I love these people, but I made it a point that year to upgrade my friends, which sounds horrible, right? But I think it's extremely important. It's not like I'm leaving the other friends. They're still my friends, but having high level people that are doing amazing things in life levels you up too. And so it actually leads in perfectly, because the first thing I did was I created a mastermind group of people. I knew one person ahead of time. The other ones I cold emailed and didn't know them at all.
Right.
So being able to upgrade, that was my first step in going, okay, I don't know how to do this, but I might as well put together a mastermind group where I talk to these people every week. And that's going to be one of those things that's going to help me level up my own brain. And that changed my life.
Yeah, it sure did. Okay, so let's talk about your mastermind group. Napoleon Hill famously talked about having about 12 people. How many people did you invite to your mastermind group? How many did you ultimately get? And was it a virtual or a physical in-person mastermind?
I'm in 2 now, but the very first one I created, I usually suggest between 5 and 7 people because the structure that I have is better for that amount. So we meet every single week, and we have for 4.5 years. So right before I started my podcast, the idea for my podcast came from this mastermind group.
Wow. Awesome.
Because, Pat Flynn, him and Maren Kate Donovan both had podcasts. And I was like, I don't know. I'm sick of writing. I'm not really sure. And they're like, why don't you start a podcast? I'm like, that's great, but what would I do? They're like, you should interview millionaires. It's like, that's a really good idea. I don't know any millionaires, but I should. That sounds like a great idea. Because I had the blog Eventual Millionaire, but I wasn't interviewing millionaires at all at the time.
Isn't that interesting?
I know.
And that's
perfect.
And that's how most people would probably approach it. They would just be interviewing their friends, the people that kind of come easy to them. But you've really got to focus. And I'm sure when you did the mastermind group, like the instant thought was, oh, well, I can get my nice friend here, my nice friend there. But like you said, you examined their lives and you found you needed to do an upgrade, right?
Definitely. So I looked at the people that I already knew. And there was one, he's a sword-swallowing hypnotist, actually. He has a website called remarkablyhuman.com. He was really cool. He was one of the people, I didn't even know him very well, actually. He had done some shows at our local theater, and I was really good friends with all the people in the theater. And so, we were friends on Facebook or something, but that's about it. I didn't even really know him very well. But he seemed successful. So I was like, okay, so I asked him. And the other people, I was looking for people that knew more about online business than me. So when I was looking for the mastermind group, I was actually an offline business coach. So I had started my business 2 years beforehand. I did a couple different things on my own in business. And then I found a mentor because I really wanted to be a coach. And this mentor was a business coach. He sold $1 million business and sort of took me under his wing as my mentor, which was really awesome. For free, which we can talk about later, how I get mentors for free all the time. So being able to have him really show me the way was great. The hard thing is that I'm from Maine, which is the 49th worst state in the US for business, by the way. So being a business coach in the middle of nowhere in the worst state was difficult,
I
right?
think California is actually the worst. At least on one of the ratings I've seen recently, my home state. Yeah.
That's hilarious, right? At least there's more people there. Maybe
well,
there's more.
True. Yeah.
So that was the hard thing, right? So don't get me wrong, I love Maine and being a business coach in Maine was great, but it's also really far. So if I went to a client, they either would have to come to me and drive really far. And it didn't really work out, especially because I have a degree in IT. I'm a huge computer geek. I was like, I should be online, but I knew nothing about online marketing at all. So having the mastermind group and looking for people that was already doing really well online that could help me with that was really, really important. But since I didn't know anyone, I was like, I'm not exactly sure the best way to do this. So I just Googled a whole bunch of stuff. I went on forums. I said, hey, I'm thinking about starting a mastermind group. I ended up finding my first member, who was a guy named David Hooper, who had multiple books, had a radio show, was out in Nashville, Tennessee, and done mastermind groups before. And he's like, okay, I'm really interested in this group, but they have to be super high level people. They have to be higher level than me. I was like, oh, shoot, I don't know any of those at all. But I cold emailed a bunch of people, like Pat Flynn. I cold emailed him, though he did say no at first. I eventually got him to say yes. And then we ended up forming a group of some really awesome people. The core of us, me, Pat, and Roderick, the sword swallower, are still the same. We've had different people come in and go, depending on what was going on with their business. But we have a bunch of millionaires in there too. I've had people that I've interviewed go, oh, can I please get in on your mastermind group?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
which is amazing, right? I'm like, oh, I guess I did a pretty good job making a high-level mastermind group.
So this first mastermind, did you charge for it, or were you just kind of doing it very informally for free?
Nope, this was for me. Don't get me wrong. It was very formal, but this was for free. So I didn't want to, number one, I didn't make a lot of cash. So I didn't want to spend a ton of money on a mastermind or mentors at the time. Because I was working about 20 hours a week because I had small children. I had 2 small kids at the time.
Sure, yeah.
So what I ended up doing, though, was trying to make it as formal as I could. So we had a whole outline with exactly what it is. We had rules that if you missed more than 2 meetings, you'd get kicked out, right? So there was definitely things in place to make it priority and high level, because I really wanted to have it be a core, like super high level people doing amazing things. It's only an hour every single week. It's every Monday at noon Eastern. And it has been for however many years. But being able to have those people that really were dedicated to it really made a difference, whether they paid for it or not. I'm in another mastermind group. It's 12 women. And that one's not paid either, but they're super high level women. We only meet once a month, and we meet a couple times in person a year to really go over and mastermind in person, which is amazing, and hang out and have awesome times with awesome people. The other mastermind, the weekly one, we meet in person too. But it's great to be able to have, they're friends. It's not just, they're my mastermind group. They're really good friends of mine. I talk to them all the time.
Yeah, that's awesome. So Jamie, one of the things that I think happens here, because I've started masterminds just informally over the years with just people I knew and so forth. And one of the things that I think happens is people, especially if they are friends, they don't treat it with any real degree of formality. Yeah. How did you set the tone to make it work? Because, things will just become casual. People show up late. If there are presentations, they don't prepare. All of this kind of stuff happens, right?
Definitely.
So I think establishing a sort of true business-like formality is probably a pretty important factor, right?
Very important. I get emails about this all the time. So in the book, I write about how to create mastermind groups. And so tons of people started emailing me going, well, I tried this and I tried this. I'm coming out with a new product that says the exact same thing, right? Of what do we do, right? It's great to create, but you have to have the right synergies with people, right? You need to curate your group big time. Otherwise, it's not going to work. So being able to set that up at the very beginning, I think it was a good thing that I didn't know them at first, to tell you the truth. Because I was like, I was a business coach already. I was being a little hardcore. And I'd run mastermind groups in the past before. So it's not as though I was coming in on this not knowing anything about mastermind groups. So the rules were set in stone. I'm like, we will kick you out. Like, we will decide to kick you out. You have to put this as a top priority, because if you don't, you will be gone. And making sure that you have that as a huge thing at the very beginning, like, no feelings hurt, right? This is just in the rules. We will kick you out, because we need to curate and make sure that people are giving the attention it deserves. Because what ends up happening, and I was just chatting with one of my clients about this. She's like, I started one. I'm like, no. I'm like, get rid of it. We don't want it. If it's not helping you, we don't want it. And so I'm a little hardcore when it comes to that sort of stuff. I only want stuff that's extremely valuable. I don't have a lot of time. So being able to make sure that everybody is on board. We had one person that would show up late and stuff like that. And I had a talk with her. We were like, oh man, she's sort of bringing the group down. And I had a talk with her and I'm like, it doesn't feel like you're really dedicated to this. And she's like, I'm not at all. I can't. I'm like, that's totally cool. So what we're going to do is we're going to need you to drop out. If you want to come back when you know you're ready and you can dedicate the time to it, awesome. But if you can't, that's okay too.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Okay.
And so being able to curate and she left, but we left on good terms. Everyone's still good friends, right? She just couldn't be where she was at. And this has happened too before with people that are sort of lower level. Like when I first started, we were like, that person isn't really a good fit. Have a conversation with them. We need to make sure that everybody is as dedicated as the others, because if you got people that aren't pulling the weight, that's when drama starts happening, right? People are like, oh, what about this? What about that? So being able to really curate it and make it really important. Even
any curation questions or specifics that you want to mention?
Yeah. So at the all women's one that I'm a part of, we all have different schedules, right? And trying to have everybody show up on one call was really difficult, right? And if they didn't get there, or they were only there for a little bit, or maybe they're flying somewhere, it's like, are you really dedicated? Well, there's only one call a month. So it's really hard to try and figure out 12 women all on one call. So you just take it and you take what you need to do. And we all talked about it when we were in Boulder a couple weeks ago. We ended up putting 2 together. So you can go to either one. Okay. And so as we're doing it, we're figuring it out to make it better and better, but everybody's on the exact same page and totally fine with being hardcore if it's not working. Right. And so as long as you're on that same page and you're problem solving together, because this is a newer group, this probably started 6 months or so ago. And we switched to the 2 per month one. So we had a 2 per month one, and one had a bunch of people and one didn't. You know, the girls that were on the one that had 2 people were like, oh, that wasn't helpful. So now we're doing RSVPs. So that way everybody knows who's going to be where, when. Yep. So as you keep going through, I mean, don't get me wrong. It's not like you're going to have it all figured out at the very beginning. Create it, but be the steward of it, right? Be the person that is really keeping it up. Because what tends to happen is we don't know what to do. And we're like, I'm not sure. And then it just starts to lack. It just starts to fizzle. Yeah. And you don't want that. Somebody has to be really hardcore. You only have so much time. It is not worth your time to be like, oh, well, I guess I should show up now I'm going to just be a little late because whatever, it doesn't matter anymore. Mm-hmm. That's not cool. That's wasting everyone's time. Good point.
What about the physical environment? And what about, we'll speak to the concept of virtual versus physical mastermind groups, if you would. And then the format, the time of day, the day of the week, if you have suggestions there, the length. You know, if it's virtual, what is the communication method? Maybe it's Skype or Google Hangout. And then when it is physical, there are some other considerations. You know, where should it be? Do you serve food? Is it like a dinner meeting? You know, maybe then it'll be a bunch of distractions and everybody will get a food coma. So, you know, there are some good logistical kind of simple questions there, but I think they're very important to address.
Definitely. So I used to run in-person mastermind groups. We had an office. And all of the people would come there, right? And so sometimes we do it, depending on the thing. Sometimes we do it over lunch. But yeah, it was a distraction to have people just sitting there eating while trying to talk and stuff like that. So to me, that didn't really work out well. I like in-person mastermind groups. Okay. I don't have any besides meeting in person when we can. The high-level people that I want to talk to are all over the country.
But you do in Austin, don't you? You know, I mean, you meet with Ryan Holiday and Tucker Max and things like that.
I'm in a thing called Entrepreneurs Fight Club, which we meet every week, but we just fight. We do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu together. So that's not really a mastermind group, but I definitely see them. Right. I don't have an in-person one. It's hard for me to drive places. So number one, being in Maine, no way I could get the high-level people that I wanted that were close. Yeah. So Austin, there was an in-person one that I was just invited to a couple months ago. Actually, my assistant, Kendra, is in it because she ended up joining instead of me. But I couldn't actually make the times. And that one I think is going pretty well. They only meet once a month too. So it's totally up to you on how you really want, what you want to get out of it and how you want to do it. To me, my weekly one is my core because we do accountability. And the structure, because you were asking the structure too, this is what I suggest for a structure. This has been the structure since the very, very, very beginning. So it's an hour call. At the very beginning, we, chit chat for like a minute or two. And you have to be kind of hardcore on this. We have this structure on purpose because otherwise masterminds will just turn into a chit chat session.
It'll just be random.
Exactly. That's not cool. So we do wins at the very beginning. So whether they're small wins or big wins, sometimes I've been on Yahoo's homepage 6 times. So sometimes I'm like, I was on Yahoo's homepage. Woo! Other times it's like, I finally got this stupid article that I have not been able to write written, right? Like they can be really, really small. They can be really, really big. It's really great. So we each go around the whole room, I should say, the whole call. Everybody goes and says what their wins are. And then we celebrate the wins.
Are you on a Google Hangout when you're doing this?
We are doing a conference call. So my all women's one is a Google Hangout. The reason why the one weekly isn't is because we travel so much. Sometimes we're in the airport or whatever, and it's way easier to not need an internet connection to just have a phone.
Oh, okay. All right.
So that's the reason why we do that. It's been that way the entire time. Some people I know pass in another one and he uses Google Hangouts. And again, I use it for the other one, but it's just more tech involved. It's great to be able to see people. But again, we're all busy, right? Everybody's busy.
Okay. So just a simple conference call, just a bridge line. Great.
Yeah. And I use freeconferencecall.com, so it's free anyway.
All right.
So then we have one person that's in the hot seat. So every week, and it rotates. We know what our schedule is. I think I'm up next week. So each time somebody's in a hot seat, they bring a problem to have the group's input on, or maybe a couple. Sometimes it's a couple small things. Like last week, one of the guys in the group got a whole new website. And he's like, okay, so let's go on these 3 pages. And what do you think? And how does it look? And what do you read it? Another guy is creating a new portion of his site and he did taglines. He's like, okay, here's my tagline. What do you think? What do you not think? That sort of thing. So whatever the thing is that you want to bring, sometimes it's high level strategy. Sometimes it's small and tactical. Like, how the heck I need to fix this thing and I've been annoyed with it. And do you know anyone that can fix this for me? Mm-hmm. So whatever the pieces are, you have 20, 30 minutes to ask whatever you want and get feedback from the group for whatever you want. Mm-hmm. Okay. Right. And so some of the rules on that is we want only constructive criticism. All the people in my groups are really positive anyway, but sometimes you can get negative Nancy or someone who's like, I don't think you can do that, blah, blah, blah. That's not cool. That brings down the whole vibe of the whole group. Sure, and so we need to make sure we're very particular about saying things correctly. Or not correctly, but gently, I should say. Mm-hmm. So we've got a couple things in place where you're like, okay, this might hurt to hear. I'm a coach, so I'm used to saying this stuff, right? Like, this might be a little uncomfortable for me to say, but I need to say it. And being able to do it in that way so everybody has everybody's back. I mean, the whole point of a mastermind group is to create that third mind, right? Where we start having enough synergy to really come out with some amazing ideas and solve problems, right? But the problem is that if it's all negative, that negates the concept and it makes it so people will leave feeling crappier than they come in. Sometimes we need to beat down an idea. If it's not a good idea, sometimes you got to beat it down, right?
Yeah, right. And that could save them a lot of money and a lot of hassle. But Jamie, exactly. I want to ask you a question. You've done the wins and then you have the hot seat. Is there a certain amount of time that the hot seat person gets to present? Like, do they have a time limit or an outline as to how they present their hot seat problem? Or do they just talk and then everybody starts chiming in?
Well, they just talk and everybody starts trying. So they state their problem and then we ask them what they want to get at the end, right? So everybody is on the same page on what they want to give them. Because sometimes you go off track and you're like, wait, is that what you really wanted from us? And at the end, they'll be like, no. So we need to be really clear on what the end result that they're looking for is. Oh, I want to know that this tagline is amazing, or I want ideas for new taglines if this one sucks, or whatever the end result is. And then, yes, then we chime in and we help each other out and we ask questions and we pull it apart. But it's 30 minutes usually. And sometimes it's 20, sometimes it's 30.
It's 30 minutes total, though.
For the hot seat, correct.
Yeah, okay, so including the presentation and the exchange afterwards.
Exactly. So it's pretty short. I mean, it's not like we're doing a ton. But the thing is that it's every week. And so we have 5 people in our group. So it's almost every month that we each get to go. And of course, you can reach out to them if you need questions or have something for them to look out within the week. We definitely do that. But we make it so it's not like rehashing a problem. Because at the end, we actually have where we bring up a resource. So we're constantly exchanging resources. So every week I get a cool new resource that my mastermind group has thought was helpful. So being able to go, okay, great. I mean, like I was just telling you that one, kanbanflow.com, which is a team project management software. That was my resource that I brought last time.
Right. That's great.
Right. And everyone's like, oh, neat. I've never heard of that before. Let me try it. I mean, I got Slack. We were talking about slack.com. Mm-hmm. Pat had Slack as his resource before. So being able to exchange those resources just so we're kept up to date on the cool stuff that's going on, really helpful. And then at the end, and sometimes we don't have enough time for this, it really depends, we talk about what we want to achieve that week. And if we don't have time on the call, this is the accountability piece, we have it listed in our Facebook group. So we also have a Facebook group that we, touch base with. Mm-hmm. And so you write down all the things that you want to get done that week. And then we hold each other accountable that way.
Okay. And so you must ask that on the following call then, right?
Yeah, most of the time we do. So it depends. It depends on who's the host. So by the way, each one has a host.
Okay.
So whoever was in the hot seat the week previous is the host. I didn't want to run it. So this is not like, yes, I started it. But to me, if I left, the mastermind group would continue. Mm-hmm. So I'm not the host every single week. It's not Jamie's mastermind group. It's everybody's mastermind group. And so whoever is the host before is like, okay, you're host. Sometimes at the beginning of the call, it's like, wait, who's host? And they're like, oh, I am. Okay, good. All right, go. Hurry up because we're late now. But being able to have that is huge. So yes, we're at the beginning. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. I have to actually probably get a little more hardcore on my group to be like, yes, the whole point of doing the accountability piece is to do this. But most of us know it anyway. Most of the guys are doing pretty good with accountability anyway. The other cool thing that we have been doing occasionally is we will take one of our mastermind meetings, and one of our friends we've got really cool high-level friends. They'll teach us something. So we had, not that long ago, one of our friends who's crushing it on YouTube using YouTube ads come in and do a whole session. It was actually with video because they went on my YouTube page, told me exactly what I needed to upgrade it, like change this, do this. I was like, this is awesome, right? So we've had those come in, and that was really helpful too. They did it for free. They're just friends of ours. They were creating a product and they wanted to know like what other questions we would have and stuff like that to make their product better. So we got free consulting from really awesome people, and that took the place of the mastermind meeting that week. So we occasionally do that too.
Mm-hmm. Good stuff. That's an awesome format. What day and time do you do this every week?
We do it Monday at noon Eastern.
Okay, great.
So it's been the same forever. But there's a resource that I suggest people when they go and create mastermind groups to find out what time works for everyone. And maybe I can give it to you later.
Like the group time app. I can't remember what that's called either. Something like with a monkey or something.
Yeah. But it makes it so everyone can decide, because that's a huge pain in the butt to try and find when every week is a lot. An hour every single week is a lot, and making sure everyone can do it. But you get that in advance before you actually start it. Get that time in advance. Mm-hmm. So that way everybody has the same thing. And then if anyone new comes in, you're like, yeah, it's this time. We're not changing it.
Right. Yeah. You either make it work or that's it. And do you have any policy on absences? I mean, I assume not everybody can be there every single time. Some people might be in the air on a jet, or doing a speech or whatever. Is there a policy on that, or is it kind of low-key on the absences?
No, I think it needs to be pretty hardcore. So it's hardcore with with flexibility, I should say, right? So mine was you can't miss 2 in a row at first at all. And you can't miss, I think it was out of the whole year, there was a certain number. We haven't had anyone miss that many anyway. But the thing that we have been doing, which I think is really important because we're very busy entrepreneurs, right? Especially during the summertime when the kids are off from school and you're traveling a lot and all that fun stuff, we will skip weeks. So like we took a 3-week hiatus this summer because one guy was hiking some sort of, 100-day thing, right? And so being able to really take out some time, that's completely fine. This past Monday, it actually worked out well when I was in Mexico because it was Veterans Day for a lot of people. So a lot of kids didn't have school on Monday. So being able to have that flexibility where we all go, okay, wait, we're not meeting this week. That's really helpful. Because if there's like usually if 2 people can't make it, would be like, how important is this? Is the first question, right? Like whoever's in the hot seat, do you need these people to be there that aren't there? And if they are, we've done it before they're all recorded anyway, and we'll send it out. But if 2 of the key people that you want the advice from are not going to be there, we'll just postpone it and do it the week after.
Yeah, excellent. Good stuff. Jamie, this has been incredibly valuable, so I'm sure our listeners will really, really like this. And the last question on the mastermind group concept I want to ask you about is, what about a paid mastermind group that you're running for profit? A lot of thought leaders are considering things like that. A lot of thought leaders are already doing that. Mm-hmm. I want to do it myself for my real estate investment company. I'd love to have maybe a second mastermind too. What are your thoughts on that?
I love them. No, so don't get me wrong. The product I'm creating that's coming out later this month is all about so you don't have to pay for your mastermind group. Because I think the people at the very beginning of business should not have to pay at all. Yep. Like they don't have a lot of cash.
Right.
When you start talking about high-level masterminds, I'm creating one also, by the way. My friend Natalie's assistant is too. We're going through and doing this because I think that is really, really important. I have access to amazing high-level people who are totally willing to pay, and we could do retreats, and that's what's in the works right now. So I love that. And I've been parts of those before too, with like Ryan Lee and that sort of thing, where we meet with him and then we go in person and we meet together, and like I made some amazing connections and friends that way. Not saying that you can't do it on your own, right? For anybody that wants to create one, you can totally create one on your own. But being able to join one where these people are super high level and how much value you're going to get out of it, I highly recommend that too. So in terms of, it definitely depends. I've been doing a lot of research on this recently. The ones that I used to run weren't as high level. There was $200 or $300 a month for the business owners back then when we were all meeting in person and stuff. And that was really cool. What I'm looking for now is super high level $1 million plus business owners. So that way we can come in and have some amazing experiences in time. And I can bring in the highest rated like people on different subjects. So that way they're getting only the most potent advice. Because I think that's really important. When you start to have a lot more money, you have less time. Not that anyone doesn't have less time. A lot of people don't have less time, but money is not as important as time is. So you want to make sure that the stuff that you're getting is extremely potent, which Jason, right?
Absolutely.
So being able to, put down $1,000 a month or something like that for a super high level mastermind is like, okay, great. I know I'm only getting the potent advice that I need. You're not wasting my time. That's when it really makes a lot of sense. Does that make sense?
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. Makes a lot of sense. Good stuff. Give out your website if you would, and tell people where they can find out more about your fantastic work.
Definitely. So if you go to eventualmillionaire.com, all of the interviews are on there for free. So you can listen to interviews with Seth Godin and Tim Ferriss and a lot of really cool people. And Jason Hartman's just came out this week. So make sure everybody tune into that for sure. And then I also have a book, which is on Amazon, which is called Eventual Millionaire also. And you can get more information on those mastermind groups in that book too, for sure.
Excellent. Good stuff. Any closing thought, Jamie? And it doesn't have to be on masterminds. Just in general. I mean, in the book, you cover a lot of different topics. In your coaching, I know you cover a lot of different topics. I saw you speak the first time I met you at the PodMove conference in Dallas a few months back. You really cover a great wide variety of things. So just closing thoughts on whatever.
Yeah. So one of the things that I think is extremely important that I notice with clients and millionaires and all that sort of thing is leveling up your mind. Right? We stop ourselves more than any other obstacle that we come up against. Those excuses, those whatever, that's what, drives us home and stops us. So if you don't feel like you're as successful as you can be, or like you're living up to your potential, or there's so much more out there for you, start really paying attention to what you're thinking, what you're reading, who you're hanging out with, all those things, just like we talked about with the mastermind groups. And when you start tweaking that and leveling that up, that's when your success starts to get bigger and bigger. Because when you start taking those actions that are uncomfortable and scary, like I hated public speaking before. I turned bright red when I public speak. And yet Jason saw me do a keynote in front of like 600-700 people.
Yeah, and you were great.
Thank you. But that sucked at first. When I was learning how to do that, that was horrible and not fun. But now I'm used to it. It makes a huge difference, right? And as you keep pushing forward and you keep trying this, it's your brain. And I could have stopped. By the way, when I first went to speak, somebody told me, they're like, well, you better wear a turtleneck because it's really distracting that you turn bright red. I was like, thanks. Yeah. Like I could have stopped and just been like, never mind, I'm horrible. I can't do anything about it. I turn red. There's nothing I can do about it. But if I let that stop me, I wouldn't have met Jason doing a keynote speech, right? And so it's getting past those things that are all in our brains. Everybody has it. Millionaires do too, which makes me feel so much better, right? They make spelling mistakes. They're just normal people.
Right.
Being able to really pay attention to that one thing is huge and will change your life.
Yeah, I agree with you. And not having the obstacles and overcoming them, very good point. I'm going to close with a quote that you just reminded me of, Jamie, and that is by Jack Parr, who said, "My life seems to be one giant obstacle course with me as the chief obstacle." So,
I love that. I love that. And the book that you mentioned, Ryan Holiday earlier, wrote a book called The Obstacle is the Way.
Great book, by the way. Yeah. Really good. So, that's our whole thing. And what you were saying in your closing thought is we've got to overcome those obstacles. We've got to overcome the biggest one being ourselves. And so leveling up, I just love it. Great tips, Jamie. Thank you so much for joining us. Keep up the good work. And folks, visit Jamie's website. Check out her podcast. It's awesome.
This show is produced by the Hartman Media Company, all rights reserved. For distribution or publication rights and media interviews, please visit www.hartmanmedia.com or email media@hartmanmedia.com. Nothing on this show should be considered specific personal or professional advice. Please consult an appropriate tax, legal, real estate, or business professional for individualized advice. Opinions of guests are their own, and the host is acting on behalf of Platinum Properties Investor Network, Inc. exclusively.